Here we go. Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to the Storyteller's Corner Break Time Story Time. I'm your host, Joshua T. Calkins Trubergy, also known as Byron Assidious. And been a busy beaver today on YouTube and Rumble. This is actually my third time on today. I don't normally do more than maybe one thing per day, and it is on my work days, usually this break time, story time, unless I am serving as a co-host, as I will be tomorrow morning on Brother Cortex's and my dual show on his channel, Cortex G33 on YouTube. Hey, Cortex. Speaking of Brother Cortex, he's right here in the chat via YouTube. Good to see you, brother. And we'll be on tomorrow for our usual Friday show, Calling of the Nerd, which is much more along the lines of our kind of discussion of all things that we like to geek out about, because we are, at the end of the day, enthusiastic nerds who would just like to see things made entertaining and engaging once again. Cool. Yes, good. Yes, we are going to be live tomorrow morning on Cortex Gaming. It's 33, or is it 336, Brother Cortex? I can never remember the exact call sign for your channel, and it's really bad of me to not keep that on top of my head. Oh, yesterday is all right, brother. I ended up I had a little bit of a thing to do on my own, as it were, and this morning I threw kind of a nutty. Yesterday morning I had a show, or I had a guest spot on the Gray Matters show at about 1:15 on that crazy white boy show for the Gray Matters on Rumble. So that was a pretty good chit-chatting interview. Scuba. Okay, so it's Cortex Gaming 333. So on YouTube, check that out. Tomorrow morning we'll be doing Calling Up the Nerd on Brother Cortex's channel. He's the primary host there. I serve as the loudmouth co-host who spurgs out and gets deep into the weeds on shite that might not necessarily be of interest to most general audiences, because I'm a bookish sort and I try to relay everything and anything back to historical examples of mythology, folklore, and legendarium, because I'm kind of an academic sort. But anyhow, this morning, yes, I went on a little bit of a nutty and was growling quite a bit about Substack, because I love the platform and I want to see it return to a state of being a good place to be, and being what I really hoped it would ostensibly be from the word go. Yes, we will get that figured out, brother, so that we can co-host it to the Byron Assidious YouTube channel as well. And yeah, we will need to talk Halo Studios, because there's some lovely nonsense going on there. But again, we will leave that for Calling of the Nerd. May be able to. I'm not sure, brother. I don't. The last time I tried to duel something that we were doing when we were doing our show together, it did not turn out well. Although, if I actually sign into my StreamYard ahead of time, I might be able to piggyback it that way. The technical end of things I'm usually kind of bad with, but yeah, we'll get it figured out, brother. No worries. So anywho, we're going to now proceed with the continuation of Kathy Potts's tale in A Midwestern Yankee in King Ovin's Court. We are now on chapter 10. We last left off with Sir Daguerreau doing his preparation for the trip. Chapter 10. On the fourth morning of her time in the city of Celia, Daguerreau came knocking at a little after 7 o'clock on her door, according to her watch, the Baron with him in the hallway. The voodoo spirit had selected that day a gray dinner jacket with long coat tails and matching slacks, roughly cut off at the shins. His wooden sandals were once more in evidence, as was a large leather duffel bag slung over his shoulder, resting on his back. His signature top hat had a bright blue feather sticking out of the hatband, and large shades covered his eyes. Kathy had already been packing when they came for her, so she had them wait out in the hallway as she finished up. When she was satisfied that all was well, she strapped on her axe and met them in the hall. "We begin our march today, southwest," said Daguerreau, as they left the hotel. "If we walk at a moderate pace and cease to rest only twice before camping for the night, well, we'll be there in 5 days. There are, unfortunately, no ether doors in that region, so we cannot shorten our travel time." "Ether doors?" Kathy asked. "Enchanted doors connecting across large distances, across and throughout Aether Realm," the Kenin High Knight said. "There are 2 here in Celia, one which connects to Hekas, far to the south, and one to Nokha, in the eastern nation of Demoblus." "Where would those parallel roughly in the mortal plane?" she asked, as they walked toward the city's southern gates. "Hekas is close to the city you know as Des Moines. Nokha stands next to New York City, practically a twin to that metro," Daguerreau said. "Demoblus covers most of New England and all of New York State in terms of its approximation." "Handy to know," Kathy said. The trio passed through the open gates, the brushed, hard-packed street giving way to looser dirt road. The thick perfume of thousands of people pressed together in a single city faded, exchanged for the crisp, clean air of the wilds. Kathy looked back at the city every 15 minutes or so, until, an hour and a half after leaving, it finally seemed distant to her. She faced forward, Daguerreau and Dimanche almost side by side, silence hanging heavy between them. Kathy wondered how long it would be before one of them made some remark that the other would take a bite at. When they neared the end of their second hour marching, Kathy called out, "Daguerreau, could we stop for a minute? My feet are getting sore." The Kenyan warrior stopped, turned, and nodded at her. The trio moved off of the main road, sitting in soft yellowish grasses along the roadside. Kathy pulled her boots off, then her socks to let them and her feet air out. "Don't do a lot of hiking in the mortal plane, what with cars readily available, eh?" Dimanche teased. "Not so much, no. Although I did start taking walks about 7 months back to start trying to get back into shape," she said. "Wish I had some Dr. Scholl's inserts for these boots." Daguerreau?" The Kenyan High Knight had drawn Boone and Bane, facing due west. Kathy searched in that direction, as did Baron Dimanche. "Ah, yes, I feel them," the Baron said, springing to his feet, hands swirling with streaks of black energy. Kathy rammed her feet swiftly back into her boots, stood up, and drew her axe. Its history of combat skills flooded through her mind, and she stood ready with her allies beside her. The beasts which came lumbering upslope toward them looked like riding mowers with dozens of narrow legs instead of wheels. Small, bulb-like heads, green and covered with strands of fine gray hair, bared razor-like teeth at them. "These monsters brought to you by John Deere," she thought, feeling herself hesitate and shrink back behind her 2 allies. There were 4 of these creatures rushing the trio through the grass. Daguerreau raced down to meet them, as 2 curling bolts of power streamed down from Dimanche's hands. Kathy hesitated, then flung herself into the fray, hoping for the best. As Daguerreau got within range, he swept his blades in a downward X at the first beast. It cried out, rearing back as blood splashed the ground. The specter that Kathy approached extended one long limb, a tentacle of some sort, from its underbelly. It swung this like a crude club at her, and Kathy blocked deftly and counterattacked, her axe head biting down deep into the creature's protruding, hardened chest. It backed up a mere step, but she tried to follow through with another swing, neatly lopping almost its entire head off. The mower thing fell over, twitching feebly. Kathy threw up violently all over the ground. The other beasts were all dead, the whole battle lasting only 30 seconds from start to finish at most. These things had been out to rip the trio apart from the first, wild monsters whose only imperative was to kill, eat, and reproduce. If she could barely fight such things without feeling revulsion, and without really testing her skill in metal, how was she to fend for her life against things with clear intelligence, with a place somewhere in Aether civilization? Daggero was wiping Boone dry with a rainbow-hued cloth when he came over to her, sheathing the blade after. Every soldier, every warrior, feels this way after their first battle, Kathy, he said. They feel uneasy, uncertain of their ability to survive. He put one furry hand on her shoulder. It gets easier, believe me. Some of these things will become instinct. They will become honed by repeatedly coming to the realization that for all of our culture and all of our civility, battle still has the horrible power to reduce us all to the same stupid minute or so of dealing death. You survived. Moreover, you actually managed to slay one of these creatures that was set on killing you. There's less shame in that than you might think. Kathy was still trying to accept that 20 minutes later, when they set off again. Farouk set the hand mirror back in his travel trunk, his need for it finished. His spy in the city watch of Celia had used his internal connections within the department to confirm where Daggero and the Tauman's human source were heading, and directly gone home. In the mirror over his bathroom sink, the corporal had used a magical seal inscribed in the glass to contact the troll Vindicator, relaying the information. Now Farouk lumbered over to the small clearing on the edge of camp, stopping shy of coming into view as his master demonstrated for the Tauman how to manipulate nearby trees, using their limbs as giant swinging cudgels from a distance. When she completed her attempt, Farouk took a hard look at her. The Tauman had grown paler since first arriving, dark hollows ringing her eyes. Casey had also begun wearing patchwork armor, personally crafted by Luga's own hands. She was losing weight quickly as well, though Farouk saw that the woman ate like a horse. She's a corruption, and her exterior is changing to match her interior, he thought. Farouk stepped into the clearing then, one thick hand raised high. Higher, Master Luga, he called out, slowly approaching. Heil, Farouk, the shade called back. He turned toward Casey, reptilian lips against her ear, and whispered, Leave us for now, dear one. Run along to my tent. She bowed to the shade Luga and ambled away, shooting Farouk a look the troll thought must be smug satisfaction. Now then, Farouk, what news? My spy in Celia sends word. Sir Daggero, the human Kathy Potts, and Baron de Manche march southwest, towards the Jacket Woods. Luga clasped his hands behind his back then, pacing to and fro. Master, do you believe they three alone are being sent for a fragment? Yes, I do. And it makes sense from their perspective. They don't know of your spy or mine in Celia, so they believe we are relying entirely upon scouts to report to us. I had one send a missive this very morning that a heavy infantry detachment was being sent north towards the Beauvale Mountains. They seek to draw us out, away from their true course by force of numbers. What response shall we provide, Master? A simple one, Luga said, halting his pacing. I shall send a troop of orcs north, accompanied by the wraith Thrasher. I'll attach a floating eye to one of the men, so that I may see this creature in action for myself. As for you, you shall select 5 men and report back to me as soon as you can. Master? Farouk, how much do you know of the Gadling Goblin? And we're about the halfway point of chapter 10, so that is where I will cut our storytime session for the evening. And we'll pick up tomorrow with the back half of chapter 10 of a Midwestern Yankee in King Ovin's court. I see. Got another notification from Rumble that another one of my newer favorite people to watch has just started streaming, so I'll probably hop over into his show when I am done here on my break and when I have to head back in. It's hard for me to believe that I have managed to maintain relatively consistent with these break time story times. This is numbered break time story time 15, though I know that I've had like 17 or 18 of these total now, but trying to maintain some kind of, I don't know, filing order or keeping track of how many of these I've done on my breaks. I'm not entirely certain why I care so much about keeping track of how many I've done, other than to just be able to say to myself, hey, I've managed to maintain consistency for X amount of time. That's not bad for me, given that I tend to crap out on these things after a certain amount of time. I think back to the 2 or 3 different times I've tried to sustainably keep up doing a brief little podcast that I had been doing for a while, that was hosted through Podomatic, kind of a defunct service or site now. Especially now that I just use Substack to do any kind of audio only or audio first programming. I do like using Substack for podcasts, but for the most part, I've been doing a lot of my material on video and actually showing up on camera. For a long time, I did not want to be on camera, and I still, when I'm just doing an audiobook reading, with the exception of what I'm doing here for the break time story time, I still prefer to just do an audio recording, have that in the background with a singular still image on screen, especially for longer presentations. If you've looked through the back catalog of my channel's videos here on YouTube or Rumble, you will see that that is the majority of the story sharing material I've done. That's how it's presented. Especially looking back to the recent presentation of Brutal But Just, an Amelia City story, which I had a great deal of enjoyment sharing that tale. And also, as another small update, I finally got friggin' BitChute to work again this morning for a standalone upload. Although it took forever. I really don't know what's going on there. I don't want to abandon ship entirely, because I have been there for some time. But with any of these kinds of sites and services, there are going to come times where you have to just let it go because it's no longer serving its original function. And it would suck for me personally to give up on using BitChute, because it's where I have my biggest audience, honestly, outside of Substack. Not that that's a very big audience. I'm still a small timer. Who knows? With time, if I stay regular on YouTube and Rumble through this again. Perhaps I'll get around to making a few connections, and we'll see what happens. I'm not expecting a whole lot, and I'm not going to bank on it. For the most part, I'm just a regular guy. I'm just a dad who enjoys telling stories, who works a regular job. One that I'm going to have to get back to in about 7 minutes. For those of you who are watching, either on Rumble or on YouTube, if you have any questions, I am certainly open to your inquiry at this time. And I'll see it pop up as a notification here in the chat. Sorry for that cough. There we go. Lucian, you recently started following me on Rumble, I think it was, or perhaps it was on Substack. One of the animated avatar systems. That is pretty tech resource dependent, and my setup here at work, I am doing this through the Rumble Studio app on my phone. And my laptop at home is not exactly a powerhouse. I don't think I would benefit that much from doing like the whole VTuber thing. I don't mind VTubers. I just don't think that my personality is much of a match for that presentation style. If you catch my meaning, like there's a certain aesthetic that goes with that. For one, I don't know a great many male VTubers. Most, I could be wrong. I don't know because I don't actually go searching them out. Much as I enjoy anime and manga as a nerd, it does seem to me to be something that is more not female coded. I don't want to put it that way. Maybe I should put it that way. After all, a whole host of genre fiction these days is female coded, as has been pointed out by several of my associates and colleagues on Substack. I believe it was Alexander Helene, or it was Fisto Sobani, over on Substack, who wrote up a whole long article just a few days ago about how a lot of fiction, especially genre fiction in fantasy, in sci-fi, and even in thrillers and horror these days, seems to be heavily coded or inclined towards a female reading audience. Whether it be young adult or adult fiction in genre fiction, it all seems to favor or lean towards a female readership. Now, this is not a huge surprise. It's not a big mystery, particularly when you consider that according to a 2022 study, I was reading about this just yesterday, so that's why I still have it memorized. According to Nielsen BookScan, yes, female preferring. According to Nielsen's BookScan's 2022 study, 66% of adult readers in the United States are women, leaving the remaining 34% being men. And when they say adults, they are clarifying adults between the ages of 18 and 40. It tends to skew heavily female. Oddly enough, according to the same BookScan results and survey, as men get older, once they get over the age of 40, they indulge in reading more. Maybe it's not that surprising. Men who are older, in their middle age, true dead set middle age and older, they've got more they've either got more time or more inclination to sit down and read for leisure. That, or they, like myself, have become disgusted with most television, films, and even video games. Much as I enjoy them, most modern games I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. But even then, the percentages don't change all that much. It then skews to a 60-40 split of 60% female, 40% male above the age of 40 in terms of United States readership. Canadian readership is a little bit different. Between the ages of 18 and 40, the book scan results in 2022 say that 54% of readers in that age group are female. The remaining 46% are male. And in the United Kingdom, it's a little bit more tilted in the other direction. It's 72% of adult readers are female. The remaining 28% are male. There's not a whole lot of analysis into why that is. Some folks have speculated, but there's not a definitive answer as to why. Because the answer of why was not, that question wasn't posed by the folks at Nielsen Bookscan. And when it comes to genre, the biggest seller and borrower category in the United States, hands down, is young adult fantasy and romance. What the fuck are we doing? Sorry, I'm not a fan. Never have been. It's not that I haven't. Look, I'm married. I've got 4 kids at home. It's not that I am without any concept of romance in my body. It's that I don't really indulge in that in my reading. I don't mind a good love story if it's well told and if it's not the absolute center of the narrative. I'm not driven by that. Why? Possibly because I've got a dick. I don't know. I'm not trying to be too simplistic about it. When I am reading for leisure or even for analysis purposes, my primary driver in a primary protagonist is not, generally speaking, aimed at their romantic entanglements. If that's there, fine. If it's well written, good. But if it's poorly slopped together, I don't give a shit. Anyway, I gotta get going, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I ask that you take care of yourselves, and as always, keep reading.